I just want to thank you again for having us. Thank you for the room that you provide for us at Holiday Inn. It was an extraordinary room. Thank you, Pastor. We just want to thank the church for everything that you did for us. We are thankful to the family who took us for lunch. Thank you very much. We enjoyed the fellowship with you. This evening I would like to speak with you about the privilege of serving the Lord. Are we seeing working for the Lord? Are we still seeing working for the Lord as a privilege? Whenever we serve the Lord, do we still considering that it is a privilege for us to serve the Lord? You know, in our society today, even in our church society today, we believe that a good preacher is somebody who is very popular. But I'm sure as you look at Jeremiah and Isaiah, you find out that sometimes the message that God is giving you to deliver, it may not make you popular. And God is not calling us to be populars, even though we like that thing. And we as preachers, we like to be populars. But in the book of Jeremiah, especially, you will find out later on that Jeremiah never was popular among the people that he served. But Jeremiah was always faithful to the message of the gospel. What is very interesting for me is that we had a graduate who started a church in the middle of the village. I mean, they had no buildings, they had no facility where they met. Chickens and pigs were going through their legs. And I asked him one time, what's your determination? Why are you doing this? He looked at me and said, because God called me to serve him, and it is such a privilege for me to do this. Many of us in our society here in the States, we're not going to do that. We need a church, we need facility. But I've seen on his face, and I've seen how devoted he was to serve the Lord. Do we see serving the Lord today as a privilege that he's giving us? Looking in the verses that we had, in verse 4 he's saying, now the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. When we are thinking of calling of the Lord in our lives, do we believe that God's calling in our life is intentional? I just want to say that God is not making mistakes. Whenever he's calling us to work for him, his calling in our lives is intentional. He's not calling us by mistake. He has a specific plan. He has a specific purpose with each one of us. I remember when we moved back to Romania, all my American friends and all my Romanian American friends who are here in Houston, they asked me, did you lost your mind? And I said, you know, when God is calling you, that may be a part of our nature here that people consider that we lost our mind. But when God is putting a call in our life, it is intentionally. I like verse 5. Before I formed you, before you came into existence, he already had a plan for Jeremiah, and he already had a plan for us. He called Jeremiah to be a prophet to the nations. He called Moses to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. He called Gideon to liberate his people from Midian oppression with only 300 people. Always when God is calling us into ministry, or when God is calling us to serve him in all the areas of serving, God is making an intentional call in our lives. He is not making mistakes. He is having a specific plan. And he's calling Jeremiah, a young man, a man who didn't know what to speak, what to say, but he's intentionally calling Jeremiah to serve him. Remember when God is calling Nathan to go to David and tell him about his sin? God is calling us intentionally in his ministry. God called us to go back to Romania. God is calling people today to be pastors, missionaries, children, ministry leaders, ushers, all kinds of ministry that we have in the churches. Sometimes we believe that a man who is called to be a preacher is more important than somebody else who is a greeter in the church. But actually, God knows all of us. He is the one who formed us, and he's calling us to serve in the ministry that he wants us, and in the ministry that he already put all the things that we need to be in that ministry. I strongly believe that when God is calling somebody to the ministry, it doesn't matter what ministry he is calling in, he's already gave them all the capabilities that they need for that ministry. Yeah, of course, with time, we learn how to develop those capabilities, but the Lord put in us all the capabilities that we need in order to serve him. That's why his call is intentional in our lives. And I'm sure many of you heard that call of the Lord in your lives to do something for Him, to do something for the ministry. But do you know what we do often? We turn that call down. We turn that button down. We don't like sometimes the calling of God in our lives. We don't like what He's calling us to do. We all like for God to call us to do great things, awesome things, things that people will see and things that people will applaud us. But sometimes God is calling us to do small things, things that we don't consider important, but they are important for Him. Are we ready to see this intentional call that God put in our lives? Are we ready to respond to this call that God is putting in our hearts? God's call in our life is irresistible. When God is calling Jeremiah, he see his insufficiency, but when God is calling you to do some ministry, His call is irresistible. In March 2009, my wife asked me, when do you think we're going to move back to Romania? And I look at her and I said, March 2010. She looked at me, she's like, that's not possible. And I said, if God wants us in Romania, He can open doors, He can close doors, He can help us rent our house, He can help us sell our cars. If that's what God wants in our life, He will do that. We have been there 6 years, and I know that that's God's plan for our life right now. People are asking me, when do you come back to the States? And I said, I don't know, talk to the Lord. He didn't talk to me yet. So we have to be careful of what God is calling us to do, because His call for our life is irresistible. If the call it is from God, it's nothing that will going to hold us back not to respond to that call that God is putting on our heart. Yes, we all see our insufficiency, but His call is irresistible. Jeremiah is saying, Lord, I'm only a youth. I'm only a young man. Moses is saying, I cannot talk. You know that I have a problem with my speech. And I like what God is telling to Moses there. Who made the tongue? Who made the tongue? And sometimes we believe that we are not suited for some ministry. But when He's calling us, He's giving us all the capabilities that we need for that ministry. He's calling Isaiah. And Isaiah is saying, Lord, I'm a man of unclean lips. And we have that in Isaiah 6, that picture where an angel, a cherubim is coming and touching Isaiah's lips. And God is saying, I can clean you. That's why I called you to serve me. I have all the things that you need. God is telling Jeremiah, do not be afraid, because I will be with you. It's such an awesome provision when we answer to the calling of the Lord. His promise, if we respond to His calling, is that He will be with us. He's not promising us that our ministry will be easy. He's not promising us that our ministry will be popular. He's not even promising us that our ministry will be financially well. No, He's not promising none of that. He's promising us that He will be with us. And you know what David is writing in Psalm with number 23? When I'm in the shadow of the valley, you are with me. It's easy to walk there because God it is with us. And that's the reason it is easy to walk with the Lord. At the interview, I'm asking the students, why are you coming to the school? I'm looking for this answer. The answer that I'm looking is, God called me to the ministry, or God called me to do something in His church. And you know that during the time of their study, by the end of their study, we could tell about students who are really called by the Lord, because they are there, they are doing their best, they give everything that they know and everything that they have to the Lord, because they understand that the calling is irresistible. We had a guy last year. We had a young man last year. His name is Adrian. He's married, have a little boy, 4-year-old boy. When he came to interview, I asked him, why do you come to school? Why do you want to come to school? Why do you want to come to our school? And he said, because I understand that this is the calling of the Lord in my life. And I said, but how about your wife and your children? Because I'm usually concerned when the man is coming to school for a full year and they do the day program. I'm concerned for his wife and for the wealth of his family. He said, you know what? My wife understood that God is calling me to the ministry, so she's going to bake cakes for the weddings so we can have money all this year round. 4 months after the school started, Adrian came to me and he said, my wife has had all the cakes in our area. She's the only one who is making cakes in our area. He said, I need to go home on Friday after classes and Saturday so I can help her out with the cakes. Because when you respond to God's ministry, He has a way of providing for us. I don't know how, and I cannot explain you today how God is providing, but I know that He is. This year I think we put about $1,000 in our Ford. We have a Ford Galaxy. You're not going to find it here in the States. It's only a car built by Ford for Europe. And one of our engine piece there broke, and we need about $350 or $500, something like that. And my wife told me, we can't pay for the repair. And I said, I know. I wrote a newsletter, and a pastor from Florida called me the next day. He said, the church decided to pay for the repair. And I have many, many stories where God provided for us. I can tell you, and I'm here to tell you, that we never went to sleep without having food on our table. Yeah, I'm not driving a BMW. I'm not driving a Mercedes-Benz. I would like to drive one. But God is not saying that He was going to give us everything that we want, but He said that He was going to give us everything that we need. And He's faithful in His promises. One of our graduates, he used to be a professional soccer player, and in his village there, he opened a soccer club. I know here in the States you just start the football season. We are not that crazy about the football season. We are crazy about the soccer season. And he opened a soccer club in his village there, and he has young men come there to the club to get trained. And in the process of getting trained of playing soccer, he is teaching them about the Lord. Young people that will never come in the church, but they're coming there to the club, to this soccer club, and he's teaching them about the Lord. When we understand that God's calling is irresistible in our lives, we will do everything that we know, everything that we have opportunity, and we're going to invest so the people are going to hear about the Lord. If they're not coming to the church, we will make a way to go to them. I like your sign. As I exit today the parking lot, I've seen there the sign. You are going out into the mission fields, and that's the reality. When God is calling us into the ministry, not only that His calling is intentionally, but God is promising us that He will be the one who is providing for us. Verse number 8, I am with you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. About 3 years ago, I visited a graduate from our school about an hour and a half from Timisoara. It was in the middle of December. He has 3 churches that he's pastoring. One church has 2 members, the other one has 10 members, and I think the other one has 15 members. And he was sleeping in one of the church. And as he showed me the church there, he showed me where he sleep. And as we go to the church, I said, but where's your wooden stove? We are in the middle of December. In Romania, we have 4 seasons there. So winter, it's pretty rough. He said, I don't have a wooden stove. And I said, how are you sleeping here with no heat? He said, that's how I had been doing it for the whole winter. We were able to buy him a wooden stove and some wood for him. But Laurie, that's his name, he's such a faithful guy in those small churches, small village churches where God put him there. And when God is calling us, the last thing that I want to mention is that God is calling us to go ahead and proclaim His word. his message. He's calling none of us to proclaim our message, to proclaim our ideas. No. He's calling us to proclaim his message. I like the last verses that we read. Then the Lord put out his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said to me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. We never can go wrong when we preach his message. We never can go wrong when we are taking his message to the people. Because his message is the one who has power to pierce the heart. His message has power to change lives. His message has the power to give us the assurance that we are in his will. And it's such an important thing for us in Romania to teach these men that are coming to school Lord's message and God's message. Not our ideas, not our philosophy, not our doctrine, but his message. And we all need to proclaim this message. Do we see today working for the Lord a privilege, or it become a burden for many of us? I know that for many of us who are serving for a long time, after a while we need to take a break. And I'm guilty of not taking a break. But it is a privilege, and I think God gave me and gave all of you a privilege to serve him. And he's making this call in our lives intentionally. He has a plan with us. He's not calling us and he's not letting us hanging in there. He has an intention with us, with our lives. His call in our life is irresistible. Irresistible. And his call in our lives, when he calls us, he's the one who provides. And he's the one who is giving us the message. Would you respond today at his call in your life? Maybe he's calling you to be a missionary. Maybe he's calling you to be an usher in your church, a greeter in your church, somebody who say hello to people who are coming for the first time in the church. Maybe he's calling you to be a pastor. God's plan for our life are wonderful. Will we be able and will we respond today at his calling, or we are turning down that volume of his talking in our lives? He will not always call us to do ministries that we want and ministries that we like. But don't forget that all of the ministry that he's calling us, it is his ministry. What a privilege God gave us as a family to move back to Romania and to be able to serve him there. What a privilege God gave you here to be able to shine his light in the area here where he put you. What a privilege God gave to our wife to be able to be with us, to be able to take all our things and help us out in the ministry. Brother and sister, it is a privilege to serve the Lord because he's the only true God. He's the only who gave his son for us. So he died at Calvary. So today we can assure that we are saved. And we know that. Are we trusting in him? Do we believe that he is sufficient in our lives? He is sufficient in our salvation? May the Lord bless you. Thank you for the time that you gave us in your church. At the end, if some of you want to have some of our prayer cards, we have prayer cards to give away. We'll be right there by the sign. Thank you again, and may God bless you all.